When his mother smiled at me across that crowded banquet hall, I thought I finally belonged. But then the woman beside me turned, adjusted her wedding ring, and called him her husband. That was the moment my world cracked open. Quietly, almost politely, in the middle of a family celebration that was never meant for me. The music was soft, violins over gentle chatter. Someone was laughing at the dessert table. My hand rested on the linen tablecloth, steadying itself as my heart stumbled. Adam was across the room, greeting guests, that familiar confident tilt to his head. I had once thought that walk was mine to love. But now, I could barely breathe. The woman next to me, beautiful in a simple navy dress, had smiled when she sat down. We'd exchanged polite words, the kind strangers share when they've been seated together at family events. She asked if I was here for Adam. And without thinking, I said yes. Yes, I'm with him, I replied, smiling the way a woman does when she's proud to be claimed. She gave me a strange look, one that landed like a splinter beneath my skin. Then she said, "That's funny. So am I. I'm his wife." The word hung between us, gentle and cruel. Wife. I remember the clinking of a spoon against a glass as someone called for a toast. The air changed, it felt thick, like honey poured too slow. My throat tightened. My mind began to flip through every moment we'd shared. Every text, every promise, every time he said, "My mother wants to meet you." And I realized she already knew me, because she'd written my name on the guest list herself. Before that night, I believed I was in love. The kind that makes you softer, lighter. Before that night, I believed I was in love. The kind that makes you softer, lighter. Adam wasn't just my boyfriend. He was the man who remembered how I took my tea, who'd send me sunrise photos when he traveled for work. He was in finance, always so busy, but he made time for me in little ways. Evening calls, late dinners, quiet mornings where he'd make me oatmeal and tell me stories about his childhood. He said I made him feel calm. That's how I wanted to believe I was different from other women. I wasn't drama. I was comfort. We met at a small gallery downtown. I was there helping a friend sell her paintings, and he stopped to look at one of my favorite pieces. A watercolor of 2 chairs on an empty porch. He said it looked lonely. I told him maybe it looked peaceful. He laughed softly and said, "Maybe that's what I've been looking for." He said things like that a lot. Thoughtful, gentle phrases that lingered in my head longer than they should. I told myself I'd been careful. After one failed relationship, I wasn't someone who fell easily anymore. But Adam, he had that rare blend of sincerity and restraint that made you trust him. When we started dating, he told me his work often required travel. Sometimes he'd be gone for 4 days at a time. I didn't question it. He'd always text, always call at night. His background noises, a hotel air conditioner, traffic outside, sounded ordinary enough. I'd met his friends once over brunch. They were polite, friendly, though one of them, a woman named Cassie, had seemed unusually quiet when Adam introduced me as his girl. She gave a tight smile and avoided my eyes. I brushed it off. Not everyone liked to socialize. And then one evening, Adam told me his mother wanted to meet me. "She's hosting a small family dinner," he said. "I told her about you, she insists you come." My heart had skipped. Meeting his mother felt like a step toward something real, something lasting. I spent days preparing, choosing the right dress, baking a small gift basket of cookies, even buying a delicate bracelet for his mom as a gesture. He smiled when he saw me that evening, kissed my forehead, said I looked perfect. I didn't know then how cruel that word would sound later. The dinner was postponed twice. "Something came up at work," he'd say, "or Mom's cousin is in town, we'll reschedule." I didn't think much of it. People were busy. But then little things began to feel off. One evening, I called him and a woman answered. She said, "You have the wrong number," and hung up before I could speak. When I mentioned it to Adam, he laughed it off, saying his assistant sometimes used his phone for client calls. Another time, he canceled a weekend trip we'd planned, saying his mother had fallen ill and needed him. I offered to come along to bring flowers. He refused, gently but firmly. "She's private about her health," he said. Still, he called me every night. Still, he sent photos, meals, sunsets, even his mother's garden. I told myself it was enough. That love didn't need to look like constant presence. Then one morning, I received a message from an unknown number. Just a single photo. It was Adam, standing beside a woman and two children in front of a house. His arm around her waist, the kids laughing. The caption said, "Family first." My heart stopped. I called him immediately. He didn't answer. When he finally texted, hours later he said, "That's an old photo. Please don't believe everything you see. People love to stir drama." I wanted to believe him. I really did. Because the alternative meant everything between us was a lie. So I did what women often do when they sense the ground shifting beneath them. I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. Until the day his mother called me herself. Her voice was warm, older, with that gentle authority mothers have. She thanked me for being there for Adam. She said she was looking forward to finally meeting me at the upcoming family charity banquet. She even asked my full name, for the guest list. I remember smiling, feeling relief flood through me. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe this was all leading to something beautiful. I didn't know I was walking straight into my own humiliation. The banquet hall was golden that night. Candles glowed in glass cylinders, violins played softly, and the air smelled faintly of jasmine and roasted chicken. It was the kind of evening that should have felt elegant, comforting even, but something in me kept trembling. Adam had picked me up in a navy suit, his tie slightly loose the way he knew I liked. "You look stunning," he said as I stepped out of my apartment, wearing a cream dress I'd bought just for this night. I laughed nervously, brushing hair from my face. "Are you sure your mom's okay with me coming?" I asked. "Of course," he said, squeezing my hand. She insisted. "Your family now." That word family sat like a warm ember in my chest. I didn't realize it would burn later. When we arrived, his mother greeted me at the entrance. A graceful woman, silver hair neatly pinned, pearls resting perfectly on her collarbone. She smiled wide, taking my hands. "So this is the lovely girl I've heard so much about," she said. "Welcome, my dear. We're so happy you could join us." Her tone was kind, her eyes kind too, though I noticed they flickered briefly toward Adam, like they were both keeping a quiet secret. Inside, the hall shimmered with laughter and soft chatter. Tables covered in white linen, families gathered, children playing near the dessert trays. I recognized none of them, yet they all seemed to know him. As Adam mingled, I found myself seated at table 7. My name card was neatly printed, placed beside another. Mrs. Hannah Carter. When she approached, I noticed her immediately, the woman with the navy dress, soft smile, and eyes that seemed to search for something familiar in me. She extended a hand. "I'm Hannah," she said warmly. "Adam's wife." The words were soft, almost casual, but they shattered the air around me. I froze. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Wife. My heart began to pound so loudly that it muffled the room's music. My throat went dry. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" She tilted her head slightly, confusion knitting her brows. "Adam's wife. We've been married 5 years. You must be a friend from work." Every muscle in my body locked. I turned toward the stage where Adam was laughing with a group of men. His arm casually slung over the shoulder of another guest. My pulse thudded in my ears. Something inside me wanted to run, to disappear before the truth could fully take shape. But my feet stayed rooted. Hannah continued, unaware of the explosion she'd just triggered. She smiled politely, reached for a glass of wine. "He mentioned inviting some colleagues tonight. You must be one of them." My lips parted, but no sound came out. I looked down at the name cards again, her name mine, next to each other, printed in the same elegant script, as if the universe itself had arranged the cruelest irony. Across the room, Adam finally noticed us. His eyes widened, not with joy but with terror. He excused himself from the conversation, walking quickly toward our table, his smile forced. "Ladies," he said, voice a little too bright. "I see you've met." I stared at him, the tremor in my hands hidden under the tablecloth. "Yes," I said quietly. "We were just getting acquainted." Hannah laughed lightly. "You didn't tell me you invited coworkers too." Adam hesitated, his gaze darting between us. Right. I just thought, well, you'd get along." I could see the sweat forming near his temple, the strain in his jaw. Hannah didn't notice. She reached for his hand, giving it a soft squeeze. "I'll leave you to mingle," she said. "It's good to finally meet your colleagues, sweetheart." Sweetheart. When she walked away, I turned to him slowly, my voice barely a whisper. "Your wife?" He looked around, making sure no one was watching. "Please not here," he murmured. "It's complicated." Complicated? I repeated, my voice shaking. "You told me you were divorced." He winced. "I'm in the process of it. I didn't want to tell you until things were final. You have to understand, she's fragile." Fragile. That word, from the lips of a liar, felt like poison. "How long?" I asked. "How long have you been married?" He sighed, lowering his voice. 5 years. But we've been separated for a while. It's over, really." I stared at him, disbelief clawing through me. "Over? You arrived together." "That's just for appearances," he insisted. "Please, can we not do this here? My mother." "Your mother?" I interrupted, bitterness cracking my voice. "She invited me. She called me herself. She put my name on that list." His eyes widened again, this time with panic. "She what?" "Oh, she knew exactly who I was," I said, standing up slowly. "Maybe she wanted to see what kind of fool her son made of me." Heads began to turn. The music still played, but something in the air had shifted. A subtle tension, like a quiet storm rolling in. He reached for my hand. "Please sit down. Let's talk later." I pulled away. "No, Adam. You talk now." His jaw tightened. "Not here." But I didn't care about the setting anymore. Shame had turned to fire. My voice trembled, but it didn't break. "You made me believe I was your future," I said. "You made me believe your mother wanted to meet me because she approved. But she already knew I was just the woman her married son was sleeping with." People were watching now. Hannah looked up from across the room, curiosity on her face. Adam's voice lowered into a harsh whisper. "You're making a scene." "No, Adam," I said. "You made a scene when you brought your mistress and your wife to the same table." He flinched. That was when Hannah stood, walking back toward us. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly. I looked at her, and my throat ached. She wasn't cruel, just unaware. My voice was quiet when I spoke. "You deserve to know the truth, Hannah." Her eyes darted between us. "What truth?" Adam tried to speak, but I cut him off. "He's been seeing me," I said. "For over a year." The silence that followed was almost holy. Heavy, pure, absolute. You could hear the clatter of a dropped fork somewhere across the room. Hannah didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared, at him, at me, then turned, walked toward the door without a word. Adam followed, calling her name. I didn't move. My body felt made of glass, brittle and thin. When they disappeared into the hallway, I sat down, staring at my untouched plate. The candles flickered, casting soft shadows. His mother appeared a few minutes later. She placed a hand on my shoulder, gentle, almost pitying. "I told him this would happen," she said quietly. "But I didn't expect you to be the one with dignity tonight." And just like that, she turned and walked away. I left the banquet hall before anyone could stop me. My heels echoed across the marble floor, sharp, deliberate sounds cutting through the murmurs that followed me. I didn't cry, not yet. I just wanted the air outside. It was raining. The kind of slow, steady rain that made everything look blurred, like the world itself couldn't bear to stay in focus. I stood under the awning, staring at the droplets sliding down the edge of my clutch bag. I felt numb. My phone buzzed. "Adam, please wait. Don't leave. Let me explain." "Explain what?" That I was the other woman he paraded into his family's event? That his mother smiled at me knowing her son was lying to 2 women at once? I turned my phone off. I walked until the rain soaked through my dress, until my makeup ran down my face like bruised watercolor. A taxi stopped, the driver asking if I was all right. I nodded, even though I wasn't, and gave him my address. When I reached home, I stood in front of the mirror. My reflection looked foreign. Hollow eyes, trembling hands, the faintest trace of disbelief still clinging to my face. How do you unlove someone who made you believe you were chosen? The next morning, he was waiting outside my building. "Please, Mia," he said as soon as I stepped out. His voice was low, hoarse. Let me explain. I crossed my arms. Explain what? That I was your entertainment while you played husband somewhere else. He looked wrecked, eyes swollen, tie gone, shirt creased. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I wanted to tell you. I just didn't want to lose me. I finished for him. So you lied? He nodded weakly. At first, it was just comfort. Hannah and we'd been distant for years. Then I met you, and you made me feel alive again. I almost laughed. You sound like a man rehearsing his lines. Mia, he pleaded. I love you. I was going to leave her. Were you? I asked quietly, because it looked like you were doing just fine smiling beside her in that hall. He fell silent. I stepped closer. You told me your mother adored me, that she couldn't wait to meet me. Did you tell her you were still married when she called me to invite me? He flinched. She didn't know everything. She knew enough, I said. She put my name on that guest list, Adam. She wrote it with her own hand. You think that was an accident? He looked away. And in that moment, I realized something painful but freeing. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he got caught. I didn't need to scream or throw things. My silence was punishment enough. I hope your wife finds peace, I said softly. Because I will too. Just not with you. I walked past him, leaving him standing in the drizzle, his head bowed like a man mourning something he'd destroyed with his own hands. The next few days felt like walking through fog. Every corner of my apartment carried a trace of him. His toothbrush, the coffee mug he always used, his cologne faintly lingering on the couch. I gathered his things into a box. I didn't text, didn't call. It wasn't just heartbreak I felt, it was humiliation. Because I'd believed. Because I'd introduced him to my friends, spoken about him like he was my forever. I decided I wouldn't be silent. Not this time. So I reached out to Hannah. It took me 3 tries to find the courage to write the message. You don't know me well, but I owe you the truth. I didn't know about you. I swear I didn't. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I didn't expect her to respond. But she did, that same evening. I know. He confessed. I don't blame you. Her words broke me in a way his never could. Because she was supposed to be the enemy in this story. The woman I'd unknowingly wronged. But she was the one showing grace. We met a week later, at a small cafe by the river. She looked tired, older somehow, but calm. I needed to see the woman he risked everything for, she said. I thought I'd hate you. But you looked just as lost as I felt. I swallowed hard. I didn't know, Hannah. I would have walked away the second I did. She nodded. I believe you. There was a pause. 2 women, strangers bound by the same man's deceit, sitting across from each other. Not in rivalry, but quiet understanding. I'm leaving him, she said finally. It's not the first time he's done this. But it'll be the last. I nodded. Good. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled faintly. You should be thankful, you know. You got the truth before it was too late. Her words stayed with me. Because she was right. I'd escaped before marriage, before shared accounts, before years of lies turned into habit. After that meeting, I blocked Adam on everything. I deleted our photos. I stopped replaying his voice in my head. And slowly, the silence that used to feel empty began to feel peaceful. 3 weeks after that cafe meeting, the truth began to move. Quietly at first, then like wildfire. It started when a photo appeared on social media. Someone had tagged me in a picture from the family banquet that night. I was sitting beside Hannah, smiling politely, unaware of who she really was. The caption was harmless, something like, "Beautiful family night." But people noticed details. Someone commented, "Wait, isn't that Adam's wife on the left?" And another replied, "Then who's the woman sitting beside her?" The thread grew. Whispers turning into a story, the story turning into a scandal. By the next day, the post had disappeared, but the damage was done. Adam's coworkers, family, and even mutual friends began to piece things together. I didn't comment. I didn't explain. I had nothing to defend. What hurt me most wasn't the gossip. It was how he reacted. Instead of owning it, Adam sent me a desperate message through a mutual friend. Please tell them it wasn't serious. that we were just friends. I almost laughed when I read that. After all those, I love you," whispered in the dark. He wanted me to erase myself to save his image. I didn't reply. Instead, I focused on my work, on rebuilding the parts of my life I'd neglected for months. But the world has a way of bringing justice in its own time. A few days later, a colleague of mine who happened to know Adam through a client mentioned almost casually, "He's been suspended." HR found out he'd been lying about his marital status in several company forms. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. I didn't celebrate his downfall. I just felt free, like the universe had settled its score. Meanwhile, Hannah had filed for divorce. She messaged me once more, short and simple. "It's done. Thank you for being honest. I hope we both find better." Her grace humbled me. She didn't have to forgive me. But she did. Maybe not for me, but for herself. And that's when I started to heal. Healing doesn't happen in a single sunrise. It's quiet. Invisible. It happens when you stop checking your phone expecting an apology. When you wake up and realize you didn't think about him for an entire day. I redecorated my apartment. Painted the walls soft cream. Bought new sheets. Little by little, I replaced everything that had his shadow on it. Sometimes, when I made coffee in the morning, I'd still hear his laugh in my mind, but it no longer hurt. It just felt distant, like an echo fading with time. Then one evening, as I was leaving work, I saw him. He was standing near the parking lot, waiting. His eyes caught mine immediately. He looked smaller somehow, not in size but in spirit. "Mia," he said quietly, "I wanted to see you." I hesitated, then sighed. "Why?" He ran a hand through his hair, voice trembling. "I lost everything. Hannah left. My job's on hold. My mother won't even talk to me." "I'm sorry for your pain," I said honestly. "But that's not my burden anymore." He nodded, his jaw tightening. "You hate me." I shook my head. "No. I don't hate you. I just don't believe you anymore." He looked like he wanted to say something more, but he didn't. He just stepped back, whispered, "You were the best thing I ever ruined," and walked away. I stood there a long time, watching him disappear into the dusk. The man who once felt like home, now just another stranger passing by. Months passed. Seasons changed. I found new hobbies, reconnected with old friends, started journaling again. Writing became my therapy. Every page a way to untangle what love had done to me. At first, my words were bitter, then sad, then reflective, and eventually forgiving. I realized that Adam's betrayal, as cruel as it was, had pushed me toward a version of myself I'd never known. Stronger, quieter, wiser. Sometimes I'd still catch glimpses of him on social media. A tagged photo here, a shared article there. His life seemed smaller now. Quieter too. But mine was growing. I even started seeing someone new months later. Slowly. Carefully. A man who didn't rush, who listened, who asked before touching my hand. One night I told him the whole story, everything. And when I finished, he didn't pity me. He just said, "I'm glad you walked away." That night, for the first time in years, I felt peace settle into my chest. Because sometimes survival isn't loud. It's not revenge or grand speeches. It's the quiet act of choosing yourself. A year later, I received an unexpected message from Adam's mother. "I owe you an apology," she wrote. "I knew about Hannah. I knew about you. I thought if I introduced you as a guest, it would scare you away, and maybe my son would come back to his senses. I didn't realize how cruel that was to you. I'm sorry." It took me a while to respond. But when I did, I wrote simply, "I forgive you. And I hope your son learns from what he's lost." Because forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. It's the door you close softly behind you when you finally decide not to live inside the pain anymore. That night, I made myself a cup of tea and stood by the window. The city lights looked softer than they used to. I smiled to myself. Not because I'd forgotten, but because I'd survived it. Sometimes I still think about that night. The long table filled with flowers, the soft clinking of glasses, the laughter that felt like it belonged to someone else's life. I remember sitting there between a man who said he loved me and a woman who'd already married him. It felt at the time like the end of my world. But now I see it differently. It wasn't an ending, it was an awakening. Because love isn't just about who makes your heart race. It's about who stands in truth with you. It's about honesty, dignity, and the quiet courage to walk away when someone treats you like a secret instead of a choice. That night, when I left the banquet hall, I walked out not as a victim, but as a woman reclaiming her worth. Even if my voice trembled, even if my heart cracked open. And that's something I wish I could tell every woman who's ever been lied to, hidden, or made to feel like she wasn't enough. You don't have to prove your value by staying. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away, with your head high and your silence louder than their excuses. I didn't get an apology that changed anything. I didn't get closure from him. But I learned that closure doesn't come from their words. It comes from your own decision to stop waiting for them. Now, when I look back, I don't see betrayal. I see a beginning. The moment I finally chose me. So, if you've ever sat in a room where everyone else knew a truth you didn't, if you've ever been made to feel like a guest in someone else's story, I hope you find the courage to write your own. Because one day, you'll realize that the pain you thought would break you was really just clearing the space for the life you were meant to have. Would you have walked away like I did? Or stayed to demand the truth? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if my story spoke to your heart, please don't forget to subscribe. Because sometimes, healing begins when we start sharing the stories we once tried to hide.